Hello and welcome back to the channel. We'll be doing something a little different for the next few videos. I'm going to be focusing on Pandora. Now, I've done a lot of constructed content on this channel throughout the last year, and now I want to start focus on a bit of Pandora because, for one, I haven't played as much Pandora as I would have liked because I'm always very focused on ladder and competitive play, and two, I wanted to update the Pandora tier list that Cappuccino made back last year in March. So I have done that. I have created a whole new tier list. So if you're looking to get into Pandora, you should check that out. I have that link in the description below. If you click that, that will take you to the tier list and you can use that to assist you when drafting in Pandora. Now, as a result of making that tier list, I'd like to talk to you guys about Pandora treasures. And I'm going to go through the top 5 Pandora treasures that I believe are the strongest in Pandora currently. This was based on my own play experience, but also feedback from other players who have been watching my stream, such as Hunter, Shaka and Bobbin, and many others. So thank you very much, guys, for helping me with this tier list. So let's get to it then and take a look at my top 5 treasures. Our first treasure is the Doom Cipher. 5 Faeria event destroys a creature and summons a 6/1 Slaughtering Shadow in its place. And that 6/1 Slaughtering Shadow will belong to you. It will be your creature. So you get to clear a creature and gain a creature as well. This is a wombo combo removal package, and it's hard removal as well. So this can kill any creature you want, and you're going to gain an additional creature with that. And this is really good for colors that don't have access to hard removal, so anything but yellow, really. So if you put this in your green-blue deck, you actually have access to a way to just kill a creature flat and gain a bit of advantage as well. So we all know how powerful Last Nightmare is, and that's at 6 Faeria, and this is at 5 Faeria. And we all know how powerful Frog Tosser is, because that develops an additional creature as well once you clear out that threat. And this is like a combination of the two. You get the hard removal of Last Nightmare, but you also get the board advantage that Frog Tosser provides. And I know this card was created before Frog Tosser, but that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of a combination of those two cards. So if you're going for your draft and you're playing any deck really, and this card shows up, I definitely recommend it because it gives you removal. It's really good if you have initiative as well. If you're kind of neutral, if your opponent, you're both fighting for board control, and then you open Pandora first, and then you pull this Doom Cipher off the top, you're able to clear their biggest threat and start applying pressure. So just a very powerful card overall, and you can never go wrong with some hard removal. Our next card is Equinox Automaton. Gift, you gain 6 life, last words deal 6 damage to your opponent, and it's a 6 Faeria 6/6, so this has really good stats for its cost. It's 1 attack higher than Ground Shaker, and we all know how good Ground Shaker is, but his gift also gives you a bit of sustain as well, so you're able to heal back up and stay in the match. But the last word is very dangerous for your opponent because this creature, if it's summoned aggressively, can start pushing damage, and if your opponent clears it, they're going to take an additional 6 damage anyway. You can use this with sacrifice cards if you want to burst your opponent down. You can use stuff like Feed the Forest, Demon Wrangler, Lord of the Waste, just to name a few. So if your opponent has 6 life left, or you need a little bit more damage to finish them off, you can use a sacrifice card to then burst them with that last words. Another thing about Equinox as well is it doesn't necessarily need to be next to your opponent's orb to be threatening. So say your opponent has 6 life left, and this card gets summoned closer to your orb as a defender. If it gets cleared, it's going to kill your opponent. So Equinox is just such a powerful creature. You know, a 6/6, like I said, is great stat lines. It can challenge a lot of the top end creatures in Faeria. It has an amazing gift ability that heals you, and it also has a very tricky last word to deal with because that 6 damage is going to come unless it gets transformed or swallowed. So you need very specific answers to stop that last word. So Equinox, very dangerous creature, and I'd strongly recommend drafting this one. Up next, we have the Hammer of Destruction. Now, some players have said this should be in a tier of its own because it's such a powerful card. And if you watch my top cards of 2017, my top event was Flame Burst because you could deal damage from hand and it can target anything. And it's just such a powerful ability in Faeria, a global free damage to anything, including your opponent's orb. Well, Hammer of Destruction is like Super Flame Burst. It does 5 damage for free Faeria, but then you also shuffle it back into your deck, so you cannot mill out. If you have Hammer of Destruction in your deck, you'll never lose to mill because you'll always draw the hammer after you throw it at your opponent. Now, 5 damage is a lot of burst to deal to your opponent's orb or to deal to a creature, and have the potential to redraw this card on the following turn to deal another 5 damage. So it's just a very solid removal option. It's a very solid burst option for finishing off your opponent. And it's also a very cheeky combo if you get this treasure and another one in your draft, and that is the Void Guardian. Now, if you get the Void Guardian and you are able to keep the Hammer of Destruction in your hand, you can play the Void Guardian, destroy your deck, and then throw the hammer for 5 damage, and then the next card you will draw will always be the Hammer of Destruction. So that is a way you can kill your opponent over a couple of turns. Very powerful combo. It actually is probably the only reason you would ever draft the Void Guardian. So Hammer of Destruction, very solid piece of removal, very solid burst option, a way to stop you from decking out, a way to create a cheesy combo with Void Guardian, and just overall a very strong card. Our next card is Ionas Mirror, a 2 Faeria event that copies the last treasure played, and it goes straight to your hand. You get 2 copies of it as well. So you can imagine comboing this after a Hammer of Destruction from your opponent. You're going to be able to take 2 Hammers of Destruction and use them against your opponent and shuffle them into your deck. So Ionas Mirror has a lot of potential if you get the right treasures. But I do believe that the skill with Ionas Mirror is identifying when to use it in the right situation. Sometimes you just have to look at your opponent's treasure, look at the board state, and see if it affects it. A good example is I was playing with Ionas Mirror and I was holding on to it, but I had the opportunity to take 2 copies of Wheel of Chaos. My opponent had played it as a piece of removal a couple of turns ago, and one of the viewers in my chat said, actually, you should probably just copy Wheel of Chaos because it's hard removal for your opponent's current creatures. And I did in the end, and I ended up winning the game because I was able to remove those creatures with the Wheel of Chaos. Now, if I had sat there and waited for a better treasure, I might have not gotten any value out of Ionas Mirror, and it might have been quite useless. So, best thing to do with Ionas Mirror is to look at the treasure your opponent last played, look at the board state, and see how it affects the board state. And if you can get board control from that treasure, it might not be a tier 1 treasure, I would take it. You know, it's definitely worth it because you want this card to have an impact on the game and maybe not sit in your hand for the entire match. And potentially your opponent's last treasure they play could be something really bad, and then you've got nothing good to copy. So take the best card that your opponent has played that affects the board state. That's my advice for Ionas Mirror. Last but not least, we have the Urn of Gabrielle. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen this card enough in constructed play, with Agoro Merchant of Wonders being a very powerful card, but it did originate from Pandora, a 0-cost event which draws you 2 cards and gains you 2 Faeria. Now, with this card, I feel it's one of the weaker cards of the tier 1 treasures, but I feel this card is as strong as your deck is. So if you've drafted some very powerful creatures going in, say, the late game, I feel Urn of Gabrielle is a huge benefit to those kind of slow controlling decks. So if you're going to be drawing stuff like Sky Whales and Ice Rock Behemoths or maybe Gemshell Tortoises, Urn of Gabrielle is going to be really good because it allows you to dig deep into your deck and find those cards. So Urn of Gabrielle, like, there's not much to say about this. You draw 2 cards, you gain 2 Faeria. It just gives you raw hand advantage and economy advantage, which your deck has to maximize. This treasure isn't going to carry the board state or anything. It isn't going to affect that at all unless the cards you draw have any impact. So Urn of Gabrielle is only as good as your deck. If you drafted a very strong deck, then Urn of Gabrielle is going to be a fantastic choice. And that wraps up this video covering the top treasures and talking about some of the videos I'll be creating over the next couple of weeks. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and be sure to check out my Pandora tier list, which is in the description below. You can find the tiers for all elements in the game, including neutral, treasures, and multicolored creatures. So it's a good resource when drafting your decks, and then you can take a look at what cards are considered strong and what cards are considered weak. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up if you haven't already. Drop a subscribe to keep up to date of when our content goes live. Be sure to check out some of our other videos in the constructed realm. You can find Deck Doctor, Deck Pilot, and Card Spotlight to satisfy those needs. So until next time, guys, take care and enjoy my Pandora content.